Hello.
Hello, Ryan.
This is where we have to fit ourselves into a little box. Hold on.
Yeah, I see that. So you can hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Okay, good.
Thanks for doing this, Martin. It's great to do this
Oh,
together.
no, thanks for asking. It's been interesting to see it develop.
Yeah. I know it's been developing over some time. Folks are joining us, so we should get started. But let's just start with how we know each other. Can we remember how we know each other?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it has to do with Los Angeles Contemporary Exhibitions, LACE,
Yeah.
in LA. And
Mhm.
I had moved from San Francisco and I started working at LACE as a documentary photographer for performances and yeah, really for the
Yeah.
performance program. And then it sort of turned into a job. I ended up coordinating the volunteers, and then I ended up working, producing a benefit auction, which was like a big, crazy, wild thing. And then I ended up sort of being facilities manager, and then I ended up on the board.
My God.
So
That's what nonprofits do. They kind of slowly suck you in, don't
yeah, they chew
they?
you up and they spit you out. No, but
That's
I'm very were it not for Lace, I don't think I would have stayed in LA because I wasn't sure that I wanted to be here. And every time I drove past an entrance to the Five North, I'd think about just turning the car and going back to San Francisco, where I had lived for a number of years and had many friends. So, but
yeah, I think
LA was Lace was like the way into LA because it's a hard place to get to know when you're alone here.
yes. And I remember too that there was something always happening at Lace. They
Yeah.
were very good at creating a culture of like excitement, and there was definitely what was that, late 80s, 90s, all that performance. And I was
Yes.
performing back then, so that's probably how we knew each other, was through shrimps. And
That's right. I think I saw you first in the Shrimps and meeting you, backstage and on stage and photographing you on Lace events and other events.
yeah, and then
So
we just started hanging out, I think a little more. And I think you helped me photograph some work maybe. But in the long run, I think it was just a circle of people that we all were
yeah,
making LA our home, which
right.
is, yeah. And
Yeah,
you're still in LA, and I'm now in Tucson. Um, but I feel really connected because I've had so much of my development as a person was in LA. Hi,
right,
cool. Yeah.
right.
Great. So let's go. You said I asked about obsessions, and you said ships. What did you say? I can't. Let me.
Yeah, I said ships, the sea, and ancestors, and they're all kind of running together. I mean, I started drawing at the beginning of this year. I think actually January 21st
Uh-huh.
was my first drawing
Yeah.
in about 30 years, and it was a ship. And then I drew another one, and I drew another one, and then every day I've been drawing ships, and which is not a complete surprise. I'm from a port. I'm sort of obsessed with ships as a kid, but they just seem to be floating around in my head. And but the drawing practice was a way to kind of stop freaking out about all the kind of COVID madness that was going
Ah,
on.
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just kept going, and now I'm drawing mostly every day,
Great.
and here I
That's
am
great.
being invited to doodle. So
Of course. So just to let everyone know, everyone doodles differently. You can just make marks. You can draw comes from your head. You can. It's just a time for the way I define it in this show is it's just a time for you to draw, and there's no need to make it look like anything or a product to sell. We are here to just enjoy making marks and chatting and kind of being idle with time. Um, and so, yeah, let's get started. So
okay,
you ready to doodle? Okay,
yes,
my setup's a little wonky, so hold on for just a second. It's a
yeah,
little
this is a first for me putting this together, but I think I've made it work.
great. And I invite everyone else to join us.
Okay, so I'm
Um,
going to flip this around.
yeah, let's see.
Ooh,
Okay.
okay.
So, oh, that looks great. Martin, you have a good setup there.
Oh, okay. So here's the ship obsession, like ships, daily ship, endless
Uh-huh. Oh my God.
ship. Anyway, so I'm not going to draw a ship.
You can do a ship.
No,
not
no,
saying you can't.
I literally want to doodle because I don't. And so this is an opportunity.
Yeah, and like I said, it's most people are just kind of doing their own thing out there. I actually can't see the screen the way that I work. So,
Yeah, I won't be
um,
able to see the screen either. So,
right. The only thing I kind of have to do sometimes is just shift my paper because we all get half a paper. So, great. And what do you say? So, the ships come, the thinking about ships comes from San Francisco, or you said a
oh
port?
no, from Southampton and in England. That's where
Oh, okay.
that's where I grew up, and I spent a lot of time as a kid being totally obsessed with the activity in the port,
Oh,
what
yeah.
was coming and going,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, and I don't know. I think somehow like ships became a carrier of emotion, and
Interesting, yeah.
ever since then I've been sort of obsessed with them. But in different ways. I used to run a website, a sort of nerd website for people who were crazy about ships, and got kind of fed up with this sort of amateur journalism aspect. And as soon as I got closed the website, I began drawing them, and I realized like, oh, they're actually allowed to enter into a different realm.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of happy about that.
How, so you photographed ships a lot uh, and you
Well,
look at photographs of ships a lot. And I
yeah,
guess I'm
I did
wondering,
a.
uh-huh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, and I just was wondering about the connection between how that's if that's changed for you, the connections changed for you by drawing as opposed to taking photographs.
Well, funnily enough, I mean, it's I didn't have a camera when I was a kid, and I started off by drawing them. And then my father, who was a bit of an amateur photographer, loaned me his camera because he knew I was always going to the docks. But it was in the days of, film, and he'd say, "You can take two photographs."
Oh,
So I would spend hours looking through the camera, kind of trying to decide whether or not this should be one of my two shots. And so I think
wow.
he taught me a lot about, editing and framing and really being sure. So it's kind of completely the opposite of what we do now, because you can just take, 100 million photos without thinking
That's
about it.
right.
But in those days, it had to be processed, and then he'd have to look at it. And so he wasn't convinced that this was a worthwhile activity. So I
Oh,
was somewhat restricted.
did he when you said you wanted to be a photographer, was he against it?
No, not at all. Actually, it was
Oh,
very encouraging.
oh, okay.
Um, Although, they always had this slightly kind of like, shouldn't you learn typing in case it doesn't work out kind of thing.
Did you
But
take a did you take a typing class?
no, I actually didn't,
Oh, I,
because I didn't want to fall back on something boring. So,
that's good. You were sounds like you were taking care of yourself. I actually took a typing class.
uh,
Yeah,
well, I
and I
wish I
don't I
had, because now I spend forever hunting and pecking for years on end.
oh yeah, I didn't have, John Fleck had like a speed of 120 or something. He had an amazing typing speed.
Oh
I think
my.
mine was probably about 70. Uh, I remember when I used to work at a um, oh, what is that, temp agency, and they had to test me for typing, and I did my typing, and they were like, maybe you should be a file clerk. So
Oh
I ended
boy.
up being a file clerk, one of the many jobs. But yeah, um, so and then so interesting. I just was remembering something, uh, a dream that you once told me and our mutual friend June
Oh my goodness.
a long time ago about, I think it was a dream about a ship. It was a dream about a ship, and the something, and what I remember about this dream was something kind of along the lines of, the ship was almost like a little microcosm of the world,
Uh-huh.
and it was like battling the forces of nature and stuff like that, or some big extreme thing that was happening. But I do remember like the way you talked about ships at that time when I knew you. It was about like it was like this microcosm.
Huh.
Uh, because there were many layers, there are different sections, different people were like different workers had different parts of the ship. There was an engine room about how it got around. There was like the guests, there's like, it's like a theater in a way too, isn't it? Because there's parts of the ship people see and parts they don't see.
Yes, very much a microcosm of society in a way.
Yeah.
It's true.
But
Yeah.
when you're drawing ships, um, how has it changed your relationship at all, or?
Well, yes. I mean, when I was writing about them, I was kind of interested in ships that I'd seen as a kid that were sort of in the middle of the century, that were built for old ocean liners that were built for line voyages,
Mm-hmm.
rather than cruise ships. And then gradually everything was becoming cruise ships. And I really have absolutely no interest in that. I seem to be very interested in drawing and looking at vessels that were built sort of between about 1850 and about 1930. And
Mm.
kind of there's a sort of a tussle of technologies which happened, which was so interesting. Like once they started adding engines, but ships still had full rigged masts with sails, and then they'd have funnels in the middle, and it just looked the oddest looking thing. And a period of paddle wheel vessels, which was
Mm-hmm.
trying to get across the Atlantic without getting their paddle wheel box smashed. And it's yeah, it was just I don't know. So, I said, I guess it's the tension of the technology and the nature, which is sort of interesting, and then also just the fact of a ship struggling through heavy seas is a kind of a kind of an illustrate. I don't know. It reminds me of sort of where we are a bit now, like
Mm-hmm.
tenuous relationship with nature that may engulf us in any moment.
That doom, the sense of doom.
Yeah,
That,
there's
yeah,
some foreboding there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I didn't grow up in a port town, but I grew up by the ocean. So I'm from a beach town, Manhattan Beach, and there is, for me, something about the ocean that is very foreboding. I mean, it's beautiful, it's there. I remember just loving being by the ocean. It had a constant presence, but there was also kind of a sense of it was very deep and it was very dangerous. And
Mm.
at any moment I could drown. So it was kind of like this funny relationship I had growing up next to it, which was it was comforting, and but it was, yeah, but it was emotional. Um,
Yes, yes.
but also there was something scary about it. A couple of times I ended up out in you know on a like not a life raft, but
What, an inflatable?
an inflatable way outside,
Uh-oh.
way where I could see my entire town, and be like, I'm a little far away now.
Oh my goodness.
And then the lifeguard would say, okay, you need to come in, and be like, oh, then you'd have to paddle in. Do you remember this film called Lifeboat with I
Oh,
think
was
it has
Tallulah
Toulouse?
Bankhead?
Yes, where she's on a typewriter on a boat.
That's a great. You've managed to pull all those threads together. It's so long since I've seen it. I mean, I remember talking to people about it, but I can't quite remember much actually about the film itself.
No, me neither. But I just remembered Lifeboat, and I just remember she's in a lifeboat, but she's typing a story as she goes, as she's floating along, and yes, that was funny. I just all of a sudden flashed on that. I think I watched it at my grandmother's house one day.
All
Um,
right.
yeah, something that happens to me, just to warn you, is that when I doodle, I tend to uh, uh, go down memory lane a little bit on my side. So
That's all right. That's good
Yeah.
to hear. It's always good to hear.
Uh, and then what was there was the third thing? It was oceans, ships,
Oh, ancestors. Well, it's funny. I mean,
ancestors. Yeah.
years ago, I'd sort of dug through Ancestry.com and got all kind of interested in these relatives because I come from a family that nobody really seems to ever talk about the past or who they were related to.
Uh-huh.
And so I managed to dig up a huge amount of relatives, and while my parents were still, quite well, they were absolutely amazed and were able, to participate and add to it and say things were wrong and so forth. Um, anyway, recently I just joined it again, and it's got a lot bigger, and there's a lot more people in it, and a lot more shared photographs. Anyway, I first found out that my great grandfather on my mother's side was a freaking ship's captain. I had no
Oh,
idea.
wow.
So that was really interesting piece of news. And then yesterday I heard that we have relatives in Sydney,
Uh-huh.
and so my great grandfather, different one, great grandfather's brother had fled a possible life as a stonemason in Bristol, and moved to Sydney, and then had three families consisting of 11 children, and died at 76 with a.
Wait, three families does all at the same time?
I hope not. It's not entirely clear. I think they were one off. I think they were sort of continuous, one after another.
Oh,
But
interesting.
kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is all news to me. I only found out yesterday.
Oh, wow. Oh, just
So
yesterday. So
so,
now,
but
oh, I
I
see.
love that there is there's ships and sea involved in these sort of adventure stories, and you know
Yeah.
people getting on a whaler and crossing the ocean in 1887 to go to Australia is very different from taking a cruise.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Well, and also too, as someone who immigrated, your family immigrated to, or did you just immigrate, or did your whole
No, it was
family
just
immigrate?
me. I was just
Oh,
me. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. No
What made you
ships.
decide to do that?
Pan Am Clipper.
Oh,
Um, I, uh, I I don't know. Ever since I was a little kid, I just had this feeling that I was supposed to be somewhere else,
interesting.
and then I kind of sort of I don't know. I just pulled some dots together, and kind of it was all a bit of a whim. I mean, I remember my father saying, shouldn't you have a job or some money or something? I mean, what are you going to do in America? And I was like, oh, Dad, so boring.
Don't be so limited, Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny.
I mean, of course, he was right, but it all worked out, but not without some difficulties. But yeah, it was a big adventure, and now I've been here a lot longer than I was in England.
Yeah, and then you recently traveled to
Iceland.
Iceland, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was on an art residency in Iceland, and I sort of fell in love with Iceland a few years ago, and I just keep having to go back there. And anyway, after about a year and a half of sort of COVID lock-in and so forth, I was feeling pretty stressed out, and I just thought that would be like the antidote, and it was like really incredible to be back there and just be in that big landscape, and take lots of photos and just think about different things, and yeah, it was
For,
miraculous.
so, I mean, I've never been to Iceland. I mean, what is it like? I mean, how could you describe it?
Well, it's kind of a bit like it's like a cold, friendly desert.
Oh, uh-huh.
So, I mean, it's not always cold. It was summer when I was there, and it was actually fairly mild. But but a lot of the time, it can have very ferocious weather that will blow you off the road, and it's a place where the nature can kill you if you're not careful.
Oh,
And
really?
but it has a very small population. It's about the size of Kentucky in terms of not population, but the landmass.
Uh-huh.
But there's only about 360,000 Icelanders, so
Wow.
it's kind of like Fresno in terms of the population, and three-quarters of that are in the capital city.
Oh, wow. So is there an indigenous population there, or um,
No,
no?
no, there was nobody there until uh, some lost people showed up in about 800.
And where were they from? Do you know?
Norway.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't. Yeah, I really
yeah.
don't
So,
know.
so
Yeah.
really, it became a land of uh, Viking farmers.
Oh, interesting.
So they took their they took their sheep and horses and yeah, made a go of it.
Are there customs? I mean, I don't, I don't want to, I'm not testing you. I just am so curious. Are there customs that are from like the original Vikings that continue on? I mean, is there a folk culture there?
Very strongly, yes.
Oh, interesting.
Because you imagine, I mean, it's an island that didn't interact much with the outside world for most of its existence until really the modern era. So it's a place that has very strong culture, and which is definitely based in the very difficult language, which I've attempted to learn and got absolutely nowhere with. But yeah, it's I would say there's a lot. But I mean, Icelanders are really good at language, so they all speak Danish and English and
Hmm.
sometimes French and German. Um,
So I'm
yeah.
having a Wicker Man fantasy now. The Wicker Man fantasy is that you arrived there and fell into some kind of folk magic customs. And I'm kind of curious as to like, did you discover any folk magic customs? Were there any strange superstitions or?
Well, there's, they have these sagas which were written, quite a long time after the events, but these massive books, and there's full of elves and trolls and all kinds of
Oh,
strange,
cool.
strange mystery activities. But some interesting things did happen while I was there. I ended up, I wasn't supposed to be alone on this residency, but it just happened that the three other artists could not make it. So I was in a fjord with the nearest person was about 10 miles away, and it was so fantastically quiet that I could what I thought I could hear was like this, like the sound of somebody thumping like a heavy instrument on the ground,
Ah,
like a thud, thump, thump, thump. And I kept hearing it over a few days, and I could not work out what it was. Is it something in the building? What is it? Anyway, it turned out it was my blood pumping in my head,
oh,
because it was so quiet. I could hear it. The internal processes, which
interesting.
was a strange thing. And
Wow.
yeah, and then I ended up going and I left the residency. I went up north, and I met a fabulous woman who is a healer, and I had lived in a yurt in the middle of nowhere for a few days, and she gave me this incredible healing, and
Okay.
which involved like banging a seal drum and rattling all kinds of things, and yeah, it was really quite profound. And then she had this huge tuning fork that was about 3 feet long, and
Oh, cool.
which she chimes, and then rests on parts of your body that need tuning.
Uh-huh.
and,
Uh-huh.
and so there's an internal vibration from this, and boy, it was absolutely knockout. And,
Yeah.
so I felt very released when I came back from there.
Oh,
like
nice.
like no need to pause, just get on with everything.
I mean,
So
it just sounds to me that you follow your intuition sometimes and it takes you to the right places, you know?
yeah, yeah, could say.
Yeah. That's great. Wow. I love that story. It's an interesting thing because I mean, during a pandemic, it seems like there was this time for us to reflect, or to investigate, more personal stuff, not be in the world trying to make money, but
Yes,
focus on
yeah,
like what's life about,
yeah.
That's
You and I haven't talked too much about that. How was it for you?
oh, um I battled, I was excited at first about the pandemic because I hadn't realized it, but like I was going, and I was always kind of, I don't know how to say it, kind of performing and teaching and working and doing. And uh, I was excited to not have to do it as much.
Mm.
And,
Oh, so it came
and
as a kind of welcome break.
it was a welcome break at first, and then I started to kind of deal with some my neuroses, and I have you know, a little bit of that, my own little inner conflicts. Had to deal with that a little bit, and just realizing, oh, I feel bad about myself, you know. and
Mm.
and I, but then I started to figure out, like, well, what can I do with myself, because this is not, you know, constructive. So I think some things happened. I was able to concentrate on making art more. I started this program when the pandemic first started. Um, I I had
Well,
to kind of create a routine for myself. So I have kind of a routine where I work out a little bit more, and part of it too, to be honest, is you knew me. Majority, not majority, about a good half of my time working at museums, I actually ended up having to go on medicine for anxiety.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So I thought, oh, during the pandemic, I'll go off it. So that's what I did. And so I detoxed a little bit.
Right.
And now it's kind of like living with that, um, and figuring out how to make a life work for how I am, as opposed to how to make myself work for how other people are, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds very internal, but that's a big part of
Yeah, when I
what went
think of
on.
internal is sort of where many of us were forced to go.
Yeah, yeah. And in the long run, really, I think really good. There's things, we had just moved to Tucson,
Uh-huh.
and and we had a great time our first year. And then when the pandemic started, it was like, where's the community? Where do we find, how do we, and now it's kind of trying to get back to that, you know, feeling of community, feeling of having a life here, you know.
Right.
And so that's kind of the new challenge. But um, yeah, and the way I work has changed a lot. I work a lot faster. I used to work very slowly, and now I work very fast.
Mm.
So that's kind of interesting, and I don't know. It's very amorphous, but it's been good. I was administrator for so long, and now my focus is primarily on teaching,
Right.
and that's been great. So I got out of typing class. I don't have to be in typing class anymore. Yeah.
Okay. So, oh, I was going to mention that I think the doodling and the ennui kind of
Oh, right.
go together a bit. And
Because you had that project.
yeah,
And
so the first time I went to Iceland, I had this. Most projects begin usually with a place or an idea or photographing something that leads me to something else. This one was totally different. It was actually the very first night I was on the residency. I suddenly had a title in my head, and I didn't have the project. I just had the title. The title was Museum of Ennui, and I thought, well, what the heck's that? And so I sort of started developing it from there. And so in the following year, I actually went back to that same town in Iceland. I had a small exhibition in their museum, and I built this cabinet, which was kind of like the first iteration of the Museum of Ennui. And then I built kind of several of them since then.
uh-huh.
And so, um, ennui is a French word that was popular in the late 1700s, and it
Uh-huh.
kind of means, it's like the state of not having anything in particular to do, which is why I thought it kind of went along with doodling in a way.
Right, right.
And I think the reason that the French word is used rather than the British tend to just call it boredom, but it's actually got a lot more subtlety to it than that, and I think that's why we use that word.
Mm.
Um, so
Yeah, yeah, because at least I remember in the UK, if you call something boring, it's a big insult. If a
yeah,
person's boring, that's like the highest insult ever.
yes, that's right.
Which is interesting. But ennui is a little bit of a different thing. It's more, it's actually kind of romantic, right? It's a little bit more of
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's got a tinge of sadness to it, but I think it has to do with like the upside of ennui. I'd say would be the the detachment. It's kind of like what you were just talking about with the the changes becoming a bit more internal. I mean, we had a lot of ennui thrust on us that was maybe not welcome, but
well, for
without a bit of
Americans, it's not.
right.
Americans don't want to have ennui. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's about detachment. It's about a pause. It's about meditation. It's about being in deep thought for a while. And I started to think about ennui as a kind of threatened state because, especially with all these jingling apps and interruptions, is that we don't really get to have a deep thought because you're constantly being shaken from it and
Right.
provided with some entertainment. But it's from like unless you get a bit bored, you probably aren't going to like invent the next thing. I think it's a sort of necessary creative,
Mm.
fertile leap to
Hmm.
move into something else. Like it's a little bit of dissatisfaction,
Mm.
and yeah. So anyway, I created this museum of ennui, and what it was really my role was more of curator. I was asking people how they experienced it, and if ennui for visual artists was a an image, what would that image be?
Mm.
And so I was offered a space in Christine Shoemaker's gallery at Shoebox and Arts and at the brewery, and she had a space that was a former broom closet, absolutely tiny closet. I thought it would be really interesting to shove the Museum of Ennui in there and try and curate as many works as I could within the space. And we had a sound installation and things that lit up and photographs and things in text. And I had a work of about 26 artists. And the only way to experience it was to go into this broom closet and close the door. And so you had a private moment with the work and with yourself. And I think that closing that door turned out to be the most fantastic thing about it. There was a huge line of people at the opening who couldn't wait to get in there and close the door. And I think just having a door to close was kind of like something people really needed.
Yeah, just a little bit of privacy. It's like a Kusama, but without all the fireworks. It's just
Right,
you and yourself. No,
right.
that's great. I remember being part of that show, and what I liked about doing it was it. I always try to focus. I want to, because I worked in museums, I always want to work on a large scale and feel like there's power to it. But what I felt like I could do is work on a small scale
Yeah,
and make work that was powerful because of the setting and that you set up.
right.
That was really that was a great idea and experience. I'm glad you did that. With that said, we are at our time's end.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. I'd love to see what you're up to. Let me look.
Yeah, I've actually got
Wow.
this is the this charcoal extravaganza is the latest one. And the one before that was a kind
Oh,
of I don't know, nature meets river mountain map or something.
yeah, yeah. Very map-like. Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, everything is sort of map like this is the first one I started is kind of like a maritime map, like with a volcanic island surrounded by depth sounding information or something. So
Yeah, yeah. Volcanoes seem to have been reoccurring for me lately too.
ah,
Volcanoes and rain keep coming around, so it's interesting. Well, thank you, Martin, for
can I
joining
see
me
what you
tonight.
can I see what you drew?
Oh
If we have
yeah, yeah.
time.
Okay, I'll turn the camera back on. I tend to go biomorphic-y kind of.
Oh wow,
They
look
look
at
a
that,
little. I'm going to do
amazing.
a line of wallpaper that no one will want because it will make them
No, I think they
crazy.
will. That's great.
And then I do,
Statement wallpaper.
now I was getting into my fall ennui.
Autumnal ennui. Yeah, lovely.
Well, thanks again, Martin. It's so great to reconnect with you, and I'm so excited about the turn you've taken with your work, and I think everything's feeding into each other in lovely ways. So,
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you
for
very
sharing
much.
that with me.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm thrilled that you're expanding in new ways, and it's really great to see you. So thank you.
I'm expanding in all kinds of ways. Let's just say that.
Right.
Um, Great. Well, now a little thing to the studio audience. Those of you who have joined us right now, just to let you know that Doodle with Me happens every Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I have, like Martin, a great guest every week. And it's different every time. So you are welcome to join anytime for 30 minutes and doodle with us. So thanks, Martin, for creating a great environment tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me. And
Yeah.
if I knew how to gracefully exit, I would, but I don't know how to turn it off.
Okay. So let's do that. Let's not be grateful. There should be a little X at the top of your screen
Oh,
to let.
there it is. I see it. Okay. All right. Bye,
Thanks.
everyone. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Martin. Bye. All right. And I will do the same. Everyone have a great weekend and sending my best to everybody. Thanks for joining. And if you can, join us next time. And if not, there's plenty coming. So, all right. Bye.